All right, so now I want to talk about I don't want to call them pros and cons or the good things and the bad things or positive and negative things. I don't really want to come at it quite like that. I want to look at it more like things that I thought about the movie that were great and things that I thought maybe could have been better. Because, Joe Cross, you got to give props to him. And I don't want it to come across like I'm being critical of him or being negative on him. I mean, this guy is amazing. He was overweight. He was over 300 pounds. He lost 100 pounds. He got off of his medications, got rid of his autoimmune disease. And then he goes across America with a camera and a juicer, and he makes a movie, and he inspires people, and he's been doing it for years. So Joe Cross is an amazing guy. I can't take anything away from him. So I thought that in itself was great, that Joe is still at it, and he's inspiring people with a very positive message. And also, I really liked Dean Ornish. Getting back to him, he said a couple of great things. Now, I just talked about how Dean Ornish kind of focused on the support systems that we need, but one of the other great things that he talked about were the foods that we should be eating. He actually comes right out and tells us that he comes right out and says it. The more that we eat of plant-based whole foods, the better our health will be. And he goes as far as to say we're talking about fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes and soy products, as long as they're in their natural, unrefined, unprocessed form. And that's very, very true. I mean, if you had to take a look at the foods that work with us, those are the foods. It is plant-based whole foods. And so he does a very good job of zeroing in on that. I'm glad that he got that in there. And then he also mentions how there isn't one diet for heart disease and another diet for losing weight and another diet for reversing your type 2 diabetes. That as long as you stick to plant-based whole food, it's kind of like a one size fits all. There's a lot of different foods within plant-based whole foods. I don't want to give you the impression, and Dean Ornish wouldn't be either, because he's famous for the spectrum diet. That you have to eat exact foods. Like, we tend to think of a diet as you have to eat these certain foods. And it's kind of like, there's many foods that you can pull from in the plant kingdom. And so it's important that as long as you're eating from those plant foods, that you will be in a position where you can reverse diseases, you will drop the weight. And I guess the overall message is, certainly something that I try to get across, is that you shouldn't be looking at losing weight or reversing this or that disease or this or that condition. You should be looking at, I need to get healthy. What do I need to get healthy? Use the plant-based whole foods to get healthy, and then once you start getting healthy, then everything will come. It's like a domino effect. You will lose weight, your heart disease will reverse, your type 2 diabetes will reverse. Everything kind of starts to happen because you're inputting the right foods. So great stuff from Dr. Dean Ornish there. The movie also gets into some great stories from people who were reversing diseases, whether it's Crohn's disease, fibromyalgia, sciatica, arthritis. You hear a lot of great stories about how people began changing their diet either through juicing or eating better, and were able to get rid of a lot of common diseases. And also in this movie, it was good to see kids taking charge. Joe goes to a school and he visits with a couple of sisters. They must have been, 8, 9, 10 years old. A pair of sisters who were talking about how one sister told the other sister, the older sister told the younger sister how eating junk food and eating certain types of food is just not good for you. And then the kids wound up pressuring the parents to make more smoothies and to eat healthier, and that they actually wouldn't go to fast food because they heard that it wasn't good for them. And it's very encouraging. I mean, usually we tend to think of parents as having the upper hand because they've got the money and they're the ones who go to the supermarket. But kids have a very powerful spot when it comes to what foods are consumed within any given household. And so it's really great that kids get educated on what foods they should be eating and the dangers of processed foods and junk foods and many other different types of foods. It's very important that kids get this information so they can educate their parents, because nowadays there are a lot of parents out there who simply don't know what it is that they should be eating themselves, let alone for their kids. And so I just really was encouraged by the overall positive message that was put forth about, fruits and vegetables and how they have extraordinary healing powers. So next up, I'm going to get into some of the things that I thought could have been better. All right, well, right now I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that I thought could have been better in this movie. And again, I'm not trying to beat up on Joe Cross or be overly critical of him. These are just some things that I observed that I thought maybe where the movie missed a mark or could have been better in some ways. So the first thing is about juicing. Now, Joe Cross is big on juicing, and he's talking mainly to a lot of regular people who are, let's say, on the standard American diet. They eat their cheeseburgers and chicken and hot dogs and fast food and cheese and milk, and they have, maybe some fruits and vegetables, but not nearly as much as they maybe should. So trying to tell them that they should start juicing might be a tall order. Now, a lot of people juice. I happen to think that it's more for the advanced person when it comes to, taking care of their health. Juicing will require you to buy equipment that you don't already own. When you juice, you're basically taking, let's say, a celery stalk, and you feed it into the juicer, and it pulverizes it, squeezes out the juice, leaves behind the fiber, leaves behind the pulp. So you're left with just the juice. I don't know if you've ever tried to squeeze a lemon, but you could take a whole lemon and squeeze everything out of it and only get like a little bit of juice. So imagine if you had to fill a tall glass full of fruit and vegetable juice, it would take you a lot of produce. So you're going to spend a lot more money at the grocery store buying a lot more produce, a lot more prep time, a lot more patience. It's very hard to take with you. You pretty much have to do it at home. Of course, Joe went across country with a generator in his car, but most people are not going to do that. So I think blending is a better option for the average person, which is something that I promote. And the reason why I say that is because, first of all, most people already own a blender. Now, it may not be the best blender, but at least you've got one, and even the worst one will do for now, at least. It doesn't take a lot of produce because, unlike juicing, you're using the whole food, so you don't need as much food. You throw the whole celery stalk in there and you consume not only the juice, but also all the fiber, and you can throw the entire apple in there, save the seeds, but you don't have to worry about as much food prep, buying as much produce, and certainly it's a lot more portable. You can take a blender with you. You can go buy something like a NutriBullet, and you can take it with you when you go on a trip. You can go to the grocery store, buy a bag of fruit, and you can make your drinks and never miss a beat. Whereas juicing comes across to me as something that you're pretty much only going to do when you're at home. And to be honest with you, a lot of the people that I have seen talk about juicing, they also do blending. And not only that, but they prefer blending for the very reasons that I just told you. So don't underestimate the power of blending foods. Don't look at it like, oh, I must juice. You don't have to juice. Maybe graduate to juicing. So I think one of the things about the movie that I would change is I would maybe shift the message and focus more on blending, because I think that will hit the target audience a whole lot better. I think he'll have more success rate if he went after blending. Also, there's a lot of talk about fruits and vegetables, and I didn't hear nearly any talk about the starchy vegetables like potatoes or foods like white rice and even beans. I didn't hear a lot of talk about that, and I think that they are vital when it comes to switching over to a plant-based diet, because if you're going to switch over to plant-based and you're thinking, okay, I need to eat fruits and vegetables, when I think of fruits and vegetables, I think of, like apples, oranges, bananas, and I think of, maybe celery and tomatoes and lettuce and stuff like that. And those are great foods. You need to have them. But if you wanted to eat only that stuff, you're going to get hungry. You're going to starve, because those foods are very high in nutrients, but they're low in calories. So they don't take up a lot of stomach space, then they're not going to fill you up, and you're going to get hungry. And when you get hungry on these types of diets, you can go off the rails, and that's when you go reaching for the cheeseburger, or you go reaching for some things that you wouldn't normally eat. So that's why I think it's very important to understand that foods like a potato is very, very healthy for you. Yeah, a sweet potato is best, but don't underestimate the white potato. This is a food that has been around for a long, long time. People can live off of potatoes. It's a complete food. It has everything in it that you would need. And so also white rice. We tend to think of brown rice as being the best, and it is better actually. It's got more of the fiber and more of the actual bran in it. But white rice has been around for a long time. Just look at the Japanese. They've been eating white rice for generations, and they're very, very healthy, and they're trim. So don't let anybody tell you that white rice and white potatoes make you fat. They simply don't know what they're talking about. These are very good foods that will help fill you up. When you're starving from the vegetables and the fruits, you need to have something that's going to fill you up. And instead of reaching for, let's say, the animal products or the processed foods, if you can kind of try to build your meals around the beans and corn and potatoes and rice. This is going to help fill you up. And that's where this movie didn't really talk about that. It's focused more on fruits and vegetables. And I think it could leave some people kind of hanging like, okay, well, now what do I eat? And I just thought it would be good for people to know that you could eat those foods too. Also, Joe goes to see a cardiologist, which was very interesting. Now, the cardiologist, I hate to say it, but she's overweight. But all right, so she goes to the cardiologist and she talks about how 15% of the cholesterol that's in our body is coming from the foods that we eat, and that modern medicine cannot reduce the cholesterol by 15%. That we really can only do that by changing our diet and eating more raw fruits and vegetables. And that's right. I mean, modern medicine maybe has a 5% success rate with bringing cholesterol down, but certainly not 15%. But she never comes right out, and I was kind of hoping she would come right out and say, what foods causes us to have higher cholesterol. I never heard her target the animal products, which contain cholesterol. She kind of mentions what we can do. We can eat more fruits and vegetables, but doesn't come out and say, try to limit your animal products or cut them out. So I kind of saw that, and that was one of the things too, is that there's no real mention of animal products being a problem in the human diet. And there's some people who don't think it is a problem. There's a lot of people who think that we need animal products, but the fact is that we don't. And animal products are not part of the food groups that Dean Ornish was talking about that we need to be healthy. Animal products, is something that introduces a lot of saturated fat, a lot of cholesterol into our diet, and you can make an argument that maybe they should be in there a little bit, but when you overconsume them the way we do, they introduce health issues, which is why people have problems with heart disease. They've got their cholesterol that's high. And the doctor was asked, what can we do to prevent heart disease? Joe asks her, what can we do? And she says the answer is, and she gives it the M word, which I hate, moderation. I'm not a fan of this word, because having a doctor telling you that the key to health is moderation, in my opinion, is misleading. Because there's no definition of that. I can tell you that moderation means going out to have fast food a couple of times a month, and somebody might say, well, that's a bit extreme. I would never have it twice in a month. I may have it twice in a year. To them, that's being moderate. So what is moderation? It's an open-ended term that I don't think a doctor should be claiming as the key to health. And then the doctor also talks about how if we want to prevent heart disease, we need to be eating healthy, eating moderately, and also being active a half an hour every single day. And if we want to prevent heart disease, we need to be active 1 hour every single day. And I think that, if you go definitely look up some of the works of not only Dr. Dean Ornish, but also go look up Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who is famous for reversing heart disease through a plant-based diet, you'll see that it has a lot more to do with eating the right foods. And it's also about what foods you don't eat, as opposed to how much exercise you get or being moderate. You won't see Caldwell Esselstyn talking about being moderate and about exercise. He will talk about eating plant-based foods and getting rid of the animal products and the oils. And I think the doctor missed the boat on that one. She takes Joe behind the scenes and actually looks at his artery under, I guess she does a scan of an artery that's in his neck, and she finds plaque. And she tells Joe that, he has an issue, that, he has calcified plaque there from the first 40 so years where he wasn't taking care of himself. And she basically tells him that, you have an issue, that you've got the potential of putting more plaque into your arteries if you don't watch the cholesterol in your own diet. Now, Joe comes right out and says, towards the end of the movie, he's talking to a group of people, and he comes right out and tells them about what he eats. And he basically says that 40% of his diet is plant-based, whole foods, 30% is animal products, and 30% is processed foods. And he even goes as far as saying, somebody asks him, I think, about going to McDonald's, and he says that McDonald's is not bad for you. He says if you want to go eat it a couple of times a month, there's nothing wrong with that. And so, see, to me, that's his version of being moderate, and to me, that's a bit extreme. I haven't had McDonald's in years, and I wouldn't go. That's just not part of my thing. But to him, Joe will go to McDonald's a couple times a month, and that's okay with him. And to be totally honest, and again, I'm not knocking on Joe, but if you run his numbers, and you don't have to take my word for it. I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm just taking the numbers that are out there. For a guy like Joe, he's 6'2", he's 240 pounds. And if you run the numbers, you will see that technically he's overweight still. And not only that, but he's about 40 pounds to 50 pounds overweight for a guy his height and for his weight. And so the reason why this is because I think he's taking a 40-30-30 kind of attitude. If you take a look at it at the bigger picture, 60% of what he eats is coming from animal products and processed foods, and 40% is coming from plant foods. And I think if he switched it and took maybe a 60 to 70 to 80% plant-based approach, instead of having most of what he eats come from saturated fat, cholesterol, and refined carbohydrates, let's say, and processed foods, that he would definitely get his weight down further, and wouldn't have to worry about the cardiologist telling him that you're at risk for putting more plaque down if he basically doesn't eat the foods that cause you to have plaque in your in your arteries. So those are just my opinions there. And, Joe talks about how the reboot is something that he uses. He's famous for the reboot, which is basically whenever he feels like he has some weight that he has to lose, probably from eating 60% away from plant-based foods, he goes on a reboot, which is basically juicing for 60 days. He'll just start juicing every day for 60 days. So, you can tell that Joe kind of goes up and down with his weight. And I think that that's to be expected. You would do that if you were eating a diet that was 40% plant-based and 60% everything else. And so he even goes as far as to say that the reboot is not a silver bullet. And I think he's right about that. I think that the approach that he's taking is not a silver bullet. But I believe that if you eat mostly plant-based foods, 80%, 90%, if you can do 100% plant-based foods, certainly you do have not only a silver bullet, but you've got the gold bullet to get healthy, which is what I was talking about before. You can get healthy. When you get healthy, when you're eating plant-based whole foods mainly, if you can do it exclusively, you will lose the weight that you're looking to lose. You will reverse the heart disease that you have. You will reverse your diabetes, your autoimmune disease, whatever it is that you've got that is ailing you. You can reverse it with a plant-based whole food diet, and you have to make that the main part of your diet. It has to be 100%, 80%, 90%, as close as you can get to that, the better off that you will be. So those are some of the things I thought that were great, some things that I thought could have been better, but overall, I give the movie a thumbs up. I say hats off to Joe Cross for bringing awareness and for doing a great job with getting off his meds and showing people the way that they can do the same. So I want to know what you think. What did you think of the movie? What do you think of Joe? What do you think of the comments and the criticisms that I've had for this particular film? I want to see what you have to say. Put them down below. If there's any other movies that you want me to talk about, I'll be glad to take a look at them. I may have already seen them. I know that this is one of the better health-related movies that has come out over the past number of years. There was a movie called Lunch Hour, which was more about kids and the school systems and the kind of food that they eat. That was a good film. There was a movie that came out not too long ago, I think it was last year, called Fed Up. I did not like that movie. Maybe I'll do one about that. So let me know what you think. And also, if you're interested in what I have to say, you want to learn some more, I've got a jumpstart guide that I have put together, which basically I take you through 5 steps that you can take to get your health turned around, to lose the weight that you want, to reverse your diseases, to stop getting sick. And it's free. Just go to freejumpstartguide.com. That's my book. You can get it for free. And I encourage you to read it. I've got lots of great info there. And I'd love to hear from you. And I've got more great videos coming your way from the Vital Blend. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.